My question is, and I've been wanting to ask Jen, Russell, I'm more than happy to hear, I'd love to hear what you have to say, but...
Okay. By all means, go ahead.
Jen, okay. So, a few years ago, after watching Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos, and from there listening to the whole group, like Hitchens and Dawkins and Sam Harris and Sean Carroll and Richard Feynman, and so after about a month of watching and listening to all that, just out of curiosity, and I was a Catholic, staunch Catholic for 47 years, very rigid, kind of authoritarian household in Michigan. And in about 5 minutes, after a month of watching this stuff, I completely lost my religion. It was the weirdest physical feeling. It swept out of me. I don't know. For the first time, after being so indoctrinated, I just woke up and realized I was responsible for myself, that there was no God who was going to take care of me in life or in any kind of afterlife. And it was the most exciting time. And so I didn't tell my family, but I did tell my best friend. She was surprisingly just really curious that her best friend had all these new ideas. And she just had enough intellectual curiosity for us to have a really good conversation. Not that she was going to change her mind, but she just had really good questions for me, and out of interest, not out of anything else, and completely accepting my thoughts and ideas about it. But then we got to, I think at some point in the conversation, I brought up something about how, part of me thinking through all this was also thinking, well, even most people in jail are Christians, and I looked at what, kind of the Catholic Church and priests had, how they had raped children for so long. And she looked at, and that was the one moment she looked at me kind of disapprovingly or quizzically saying, but we're all sinners. Okay. And I was here I was in this kind of, I was just so thrown off, because how can you argue with that? Not that I'm still an atheist, and I don't. But it was the one thing that this really intelligent person who respected me and listened to me, and knew she wasn't going to change my mind. But it's true. We all are imperfect, and I just hated the idea, though, that she was using a Christian term to make it sound like, well, I can't have an opinion about all that because. Sure, we could bring up 10,000 things I've done wrong. And so, Jen, I wanted to ask you specifically, how would you respond, or how do you respond when Christians say things like, well, we're all sinners?
Well, first of all, I categorically reject the concept of sin. Okay, sin is generally defined as some transgression against divine law or against, a God. And since I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe in this divine law crap, I just reject the whole concept of sin. I would reframe something like that and say we're all human. Okay? Perfection is not required. It's not achievable for a human. And there's nothing wrong with being human. What we're not allowed to do under the law or ethically or anything like that is things like rape children, which it sounds like she was using that whole we're all sinners thing to justify or at least excuse the fact that these priests abused children, preyed upon children, covered up the abuse of children for decades. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to get out of jail free card by saying, oh, but we're all sinners.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It was all of a sudden everything was a false equivalency or something.
And the thing is, if you do something that harms someone else, not all of those kinds of transgressions are equal. So, if I swing my arm and I whack Russell upside the head, I've harmed him and I owe him an apology. But that's a lot different than, if I took a baseball bat and took out his knee.
I'm not sure I like where this analogy is going.
You're safe. I wouldn't hit you. But, like I said, not all transgressions are equal.
Although I'll point out that under a Christian framework, they are. And that's a problem with Christian morality, is that, the whole concept of sin is basically that, it's something that's less good than what God would do.
Right.
And because God is infinitely good, that's why they say you deserve infinite punishment unless you get saved. Because if you even run a red light, or I don't know, maybe God doesn't care about traffic laws, but if you were to accidentally hit me in the head with your arm, that is an equally bad thing under Christian morality as raping children.
Yeah.
I mean, different people believe at different things, but that is certainly one flavor that is sort of pointed out in the Bible.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at how criminal justice systems are set up throughout the world, what we try to do, and sometimes we don't quite get there, but the goal is to make sure that the punishment fits the crime. So if someone runs a red light, the punishment for that is not the death penalty. You pay a fine, and that's considered, a just punishment for what you did. If you assault someone, that's a very different situation. And depending on why you did it, you may end up with, a lengthy prison sentence and a fine and have to pay restitution and all kinds of stuff. Because we recognize that, different things merit different levels of punishment. The Bible, or in Christianity, they don't make that distinction. If Christianity, at least some flavors of it, would brand me a sinner because I'm gay, and that would be the same as if I were raping children, and that's appalling. So yeah, I don't buy this whole "we're all sinners" crap. We're all human, and we have human responsibilities to each other.
Okay, well then next time I'll say that.
Okay.
But I love it that this is on tape, so that even though my brain is kind of stuck, like it's hard to take in everything you guys are saying, I mean, I can re-listen to this and kind of, because that's what I was thinking, but the words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. Like about how it doesn't make sense. Because
but that's your indoctrination.
Yeah,
it's very insidious. It comes back.
Speak up.
Another thing that I would think about bringing up after you said, well, a lot of priests have done appalling things, and the answer was, we're all sinners, then the question might be, well, then what good is the religion? What's it useful for?
Right.
That's not necessarily like the end of the discussion, but one of the reasons that morality comes up in the first place is because believers claim that you can't truly be a good person unless you have God as your objective measuring stick for what's moral and what's not moral. And if it turns out that believers are no more likely to act like good people than non-believers, then that is at least one entire pillar of that's propping up people wanting to have religious beliefs that is not valid and doesn't hold true. Now, then there's still all the other questions of, well, objectively and scientifically, can we figure out whether there's a God or not? But I think those are, in many cases, easier to argue than the moral argument. And at least you can frame it so that she has to explicitly give up the moral high ground while trying to defend her religion.
Right. Okay. All right. This is good because, like you said, it's not the end of the conversation, but it's the beginning of opening up these ideas. Because ultimately, I just see. I was just thinking about this. It leads to even a bigger issue of, she's married to a verbally abusive man, and she's staying in it. And I was too, but I woke up and got out when I realized there's no justice that's going to come to this person later. So I need to make my own life separate. And I think, and I'll have to talk with her about this, but I think she uses that we're all sinners argument to justify staying, because in a marriage, because I'm sure she could list a million things she's done wrong in life. And okay, this is making more sense, because that's what I want. I want to break the conversation open into whatever happens in the conversation, whatever ideas could happen on the discussion, rather than it getting stopped where it was because I didn't know how to respond.
And I'm glad she has someone like you available to her, because, as you say, she's in a verbally abusive relationship right now, and her religion is probably a big factor that's keeping her in that relationship, or at least preventing her from seeking counseling that would help her change the dynamic of her relationship. And so you being there to support her in this is a big deal.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that my mom is in the same thing, and all these friends from growing up and who are religious are kind of in the same situation. Yeah, so I think there's a bigger conversation to be had. Thank you guys so much.
Real quick before you go, I'm being reminded to plug the Hotline Project, which apparently is, you can call, 184 I Doubt It?
Yeah.
And that is a group of volunteers that you can call who will talk you through some of this stuff if they're available. And, just in a non-judgmental way, help people who are basically recovering from religion.
This is basically for people trying to break free of their indoctrination.
Right.
Okay. Oh, great, good.
Yeah, so just Google the Hotline Project if you need to know more.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I hadn't heard of it before. All right, well,
thanks for calling.
You guys so much.
Yes, thank you for the call.
Bye. Bye.
All right, see ya.
So yet another example of how insidious indoctrination is. Even if somebody has basically, walked away from religion, a lot of that indoctrination comes back to bite them.
Right.